Hi, brothers and sisters, family and friends. I hope and pray you have a good day and a blessed day and all, many blessings. Well, that's a story I would like to share with you all. Please listen this story starts with a little boy. He's near the age of 17, 16, I guess, 17 and 16. He's near that age and he has a mom and a dad, and he has he doesn't have any siblings. He only has a mom and a dad. His mom and his dad, they all are Torah believers. They believe in the Most High, and they love the Most High very, very much. They strive to live their whole lives as the Most High would want them. They dedicated their whole lives to the Most High, so they try to live in righteousness and they try to do all they can to live right. They believe in all the commandments, they do all the commandments, all the laws and all that. And they were very happy together. One day, near twilight, his parents was on their way from town back home. The little boy decided he wanted to stay at home because he doesn't want to see the rest of the people in the world. He said the rest of the world, there's too many evil and he doesn't want to be part of it. So he stayed at home and his parents were on their way from town back home near twilight. But something happened. As they were driving, there was an accident, and in that accident, the little boy's mom and dad both died. So the little boy didn't have a mom and a dad anymore. But he had a grandma and a grandpa, and they decided to look after him. And his grandmother, she loved the Most High very much. She was just like his mom and his dad. She dedicated her whole life to do the will of the Most High and to do what was expected from her and all. She tried to live in righteousness. His grandpa, that's another story. His grandpa. He knew about the Most High and he also tried, I guess, to live the right laws and live rightly. He knew about the Most High and all. And he said that he feared the Most High and that he loves the Most High and all. But something different happened. It's been 6 days and the little boy's been living with his grandparents 6 days. And he's been having a great time living with his grandparents. But the seventh day, the next day, the Sabbath day, it was the Sabbath. So the little boy decided to go to bed early because it's a Sabbath. So he's very excited. It's kind of going to be like his very first Sabbath day with his grandparents. Usually he would be at home with his parents, his mom and his dad, and they would read scripture and do Torah studies and all. But now it's going to be the very first day very first Sabbath day with what he's going to spend with his grandparents. So he's excited. So he went to bed and the next morning early, he got it up, he read the scripture, he prayed, and he then went down to greet his grandparents. He went down and he said, "Good morning, Grandma and Grandpa." But then he saw it's only his grandpa who was sitting there eating his porridge. Yes, he said, "Good morning, Grandpa. Where's Grandma?" Grandpa said, "Yes, good morning, kiddo, and your grandma's out in the garden again." Oh, okay. So the little boy just took his porridge and started eating. He said, and he was eating his porridge. His grandpa then finished eating and he got up and took his bag and said, "All right, I'm off." And the little boy looked at his grandpa and said, "Where are you going, Grandpa?" His grandpa said, "To work. Where else do you think, kiddo?" He was shocked. The little boy was shocked when he heard these words of his grandpa. He said, "Grandpa, it's Sabbath. Why do you want to go to work on a Sabbath?" He thought maybe his grandpa's old age is coming to him or something. His grandpa said, I know it's Sabbath, but I have to work or you and your grandma won't have any food on the table. And then he took his bag and he was walking out to work. The little boy was just sitting there, shocked, because his grandpa is going to work on a Sabbath day? Something's wrong here. He didn't even continue eating, he just got up and ran out to the back door, out into the garden, screaming, Grandma, Grandma, where are you? And then he saw his grandma sitting under a tree reading something. He ran to her and said, Grandma, Grandma! And his grandma said, she looked up at him and she said, Yes, dear, what's wrong? And he said, Grandma, Grandpa's, he's going to work on a Sabbath day. And, well, his grandma, she just looked it back down, looking at the scripture in her hands, and she sighed and said, I know, dear, your grandpa goes every Sabbath. He goes to work. Even on the feast days and all, he works. The little boy was standing there shocked. What? This can't be right. His grandpa's working on the Sabbath? No, this is wrong. He said, Grandma, but that's not right. It's against the Torah. His grandma just sighed and said, before she said something, she was silent. She just sighed and then she said, Go sit next to me and I'll explain to you something. So the little boy sat down next to her and looked at her, waiting for her to explain. His grandma then sighed again and looked up into the sky and said, You see, since your mom was a little girl in the house, we were moving around from place to place, couldn't find a place for us to stay, and, well, jobs was very hard to find. So it was hard for us. But we still trusted in the Most High, and your grandfather even made a promise that he would always try his very best to live the way the Most High wants of him, to live righteously. And while we got it by a friend of ours a little job at his shop, we got it there a job, and we even tried to start selling our own things to start a business. I guess it would have worked it, but then your grandfather got a call from someone he once met. And being a grandfather, he explained our whole story of how we're trying to get a job and all, and he explained it to that person, and that person said, well, you can come work for us. And it seemed like a good idea at that time. We thought, all right, it's gonna be good. We thought the grass was greener on the other side. So we came to this place and we started to work here. The first years it seemed good. But after the second years, your grandfather went astray. His grandmother sighed and then said again, Since we came here, your grandfather went astray. He started working on the Sabbaths and he worked on the feast days. And he went astray. Your mother, she was also starting to go astray. But the Most High opened her eyes and she didn't go astray. He opened her eyes and she lived in a righteous way again. Me and your mother both tried to speak to your grandpa, telling him that he shouldn't work on the Sabbath day, that he should stop with doing those wrong. But your grandfather just wouldn't listen to us. Years passed by and it was still the same thing every year, every time. There was times when your mother was crying. It was a hard time. I stopped it to try to talk to your grandpa because it just brought me to sorrow. It just made me upset. So I stopped talking to your grandfather about it. Your mother, she of course still did try. And when she met your father, well, immediately they fell in love because they both believed in the Torah. They were very strong in it and they were soulmates. So immediately they fell in love and got married. And when they got married, even your father was trying to talk to your grandpa, telling him that the Torah says what the Torah says. He shouldn't work on the Sabbath and other stuff. But your grandfather still wouldn't listen. So yes, there were fights in the family. But when your mother was pregnant with you, she came to me and she said, "Mother, please, let there not be fights between us. Let we not fight in front of my child when he's born. I do not want the child to go through what I'm going through. So that's why we've never fighted in front of you." Your mother and father still tried talking to your grandfather and all, but we just kept it a secret from you, because that's when your mother asked it of me. But I guess you have to know now, because you're gonna live with us. His grandmother just kept it looking into the sky, and she said again, "Your grandfather has been like this since we came and lived it here. He's been working on the Sabbath, and he started to go astray, and he's losing time for the Most High. He's giving his time to the world and worldly possessions." His grandmother, he looked then at his grandmother. He saw the tears in her eyes. She was fighting the tears. It was hard for him to see it. He sat in silence before he said, "Grandma, is it really worth it? I understand Grandpa's trying to work so there's food on the table. But Grandma, is it really worth it? You, I, and Mom knew that in the scripture it says, 'Whoever so works on the Sabbath, his soul shall be cut off from among his people, and he shall be put to death.' Grandma, do you really think it's worth it to work on the Sabbath day? Like Mom told me once, if I have to choose between a job just to have food and to the law, she would choose to do the law. She would not choose the job. If she had to be on the streets, she shall live on the streets, because she puts all her trust and her faith in the Most High. Doesn't Grandpa do the same? Doesn't he put his trust in the Most High? I am sure that if Grandpa would just put his trust in the Most High, and if he would leave everything in the hands of the Most High, and he would stop doing the wrong, then there would be a life for all of us. You and Grandpa's old now, and it's really hard for you now to work because you're so old. But yet Grandpa, even in his old age, he has to work just to have food on the table. But Grandma, do you really think it's worth it that he has to work in his old age just to have a little bit of food on the table? Because now he's breaking the laws, the Torah, the commandments. Now he's breaking all of this. For what? Just for a house? Just for food? Do you really think it's worth it, Grandma? If I'm looking back into the scripture times with Adam and Eve, they only broke one commandment, and look what happened to them. They got a kick out of the garden. And Grandpa, I don't know how many commandments and laws Grandpa's breaking, but if he's breaking more than he should, Grandma, how would it then just be today? Just think. Grandma, is it really, really worth it that Grandpa's breaking commandments for this? Do you really think it's worth it? Now, brothers and sisters, family and friends, if you were this little boy's grandma, what would you have said to him with this question? What would you have answered him? Do you think it's worth it that his grandpa is working and breaking the commandments, and he's not even caring anymore? Do you think it's worth it that he's doing the wrong thing just for what? Worldly possessions? Do you think he's doing the right thing or the wrong thing? What would you have said to that little boy if you were his grandma? I hope you have a blessed day. Bye.